J-O-E in the place to be. HB on the track, it's like ecstasy. Rowing a well of 7 years, what we drink and be. Trying to sling the dopest rhymes in the galaxy. Let me take a minute though and relax your mind. Sometimes these words can be hard to find. 24/7 on that daily grind. Hearing voices in my head, man, they not that kind. Cause bitches be bitches, snitches keep snitching. The world keeps turning, and I keep hitching a ride instead of living my life. Yo, 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 yo.
Man, when you feel hungry, don't you have to eat?
Yo, yo, pump up the volume and digest this beat.
Rapscallions in the house with this lyrical treat.
When we're done with you, you're gonna ice your feet.
If the world ends tomorrow and you had one chance,
Hey, yo, would you start the move like it's your last dance?
yo, do something small in the past and present changes.
Do something now, the future rearranges.
Cause bitches keep bitching.
Yo, snitches keep snitching.
The world keeps turning.
And you start living your life instead of hitching a ride. Rapscallions. J-O-E in the place to be. HB on the track, it's like ecstasy. Rowing a well of 7 years, what we drink and be. Trying to sling the dopest rhymes in the galaxy. Let me take a minute though and relax your mind. Sometimes these words can be hard to find. 24/7 on that daily grind. Hearing voices in my head, man, they not that kind. Cause bitches be bitches, snitches keep snitching. The world keeps turning, and I keep hitching a ride instead of living my life. Yo, 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 yo.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Rapping with Rapscallions. We got a very special show today. Not only is the guest a good friend of mine, a very interesting man, and has an amazing profession, but we're in episode number 30. This is a big episode. But first off, the point 5 of the Rapscallions. Let's do the Rapping with Rapscallions weekly wrap-up. How was your week, Joe?
Hey, HB. Yes, indeed. We do have a great show today. Very exciting. So many questions to ask this person that will be joining us in a few minutes. HB, my week was, I've carried on. I'm very proud of myself. I've carried on with my exercise, which is good. Trying to stay active, get the blood flowing, oxygen in the body, man. It was your birthday on Wednesday. So
Yep.
I'm expecting we're going to hear about that later on because we all want to know what went down on your birthday. And hey, I discovered something today. This is really silly, off topic, but Elizabeth Shue, you remember her?
Oh, yeah. Adventures of Babysitting.
Yeah, dude. So she was in this series called The Boys on Amazon Prime about these superheroes. And I was like, man, this lady looks familiar. And then I realized it was the same girl from Karate Kid.
Oh.
She was like huge in the 80s, man. And I was like, whoa, like it was just
Super famous.
Totally. Totally. So it was a good week full of new discoveries. How was yours?
Well, like you said, it was my birthday, so I pretty much commandeered the entire week. I reached level 45 of wizardry. My spells are at maximum strength.
Woohoo.
I decided to douse all the old years. I doused all the 39 and below years, 44 and below years with lots of rum. A friend of mine sent me a bottle of rum. You know who that was? It was Joe.
That?
Thank you, Joe.
Aw, snap. You're welcome.
Yeah. So, I've been celebrating all week. Have to say thanks to everyone who reached out. My goodness. Social media gets a bad rap, but hearing from people all the way from China, from Germany, all over the U.S., from Panama and South America, just saying happy birthday, I got to say it was pretty cool. So I spent my entire birthday writing back to all of them on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Mars Rover, who was a big fan of ours.
Man, Mars Rover.
Yeah, so just a birthday week, very thankful. Lots of friends reaching out. It's pretty cool. So that's all I got to say about that. Let's bring our guest in, man. I'm super excited.
Bring him in. Yeah, dude.
All right. Introducing Captain Andrew Efthimiadis, pilot of the Panama Canal and port captain. Thank you for joining us, Captain.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Fuerte abrazo to you two guys. I just want to take my hat off and start off and saying what you guys are doing is phenomenal. Taking the initiative to bring these delightful episodes every week to people all over the world. You're bringing people together, kind of like the canal. So we segue into that. We're bringing markets together. And I just want to say thank you guys.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be here.
Oh, the honor is all ours. And
Thank you so much.
thank you for pointing those things out. We try to try to bring fun and lively things and interesting things and things that bring the positive aspects of Panama to light. So we were really grateful for you saying so. We got
That's
a shout
right,
out
man.
to Alex Reyes. He says, FD, FD.
Yeah, Alex and I go back a long time. Another fine artist in the community. You know, we really do have in this community a fine selection of really talented people, and I'm just proud to be in their shadows.
Well, let's talk about some other shadows. The shadows of the Panama Canal. You know, what you do for a living to me is
Epic.
I'm kind of awestruck. You know, just thinking about it. A lot of my friends have been
Epic.
pilots, and talking to them about the operations of the canal have never failed to interest me. Every tidbit that you guys share over a beer, over a rum, is always fun. And we've had fighter pilots on the show.
Mhm.
We've had mega structure engineers that worked on the expansion. But today, we're talking to the guy that brings ships through the canal. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. If people didn't do what you did, there would be no functioning canal as we know it. It is vital. What you do
Exactly.
is vital to the running of the canal.
Thanks for that introduction. I'll tell you, it's quite an operation, and it's a lot of teamwork involved since day one, 1903, or even before then. The construction, there's a lot of moving parts in the canal. And for me, my first impression of all those moving parts, I don't know if you guys remember the Shadow Day. Speaking of shadows, do you all remember that? It was Parent Day.
No.
You would follow your parents around.
Oh.
This was in 7th grade.
Ah,
Do you remember that? It was called Shadow Day.
yeah. Take your kid to school days.
school
I think they
day,
renamed it.
yeah.
So for me, I spent many evenings with my dad, who was a pediatrician at Gorgas, and I'll never forget the day that I said, "Well, no, I don't think this is for me." Being a doctor, even though my dad was always very encouraging, and he said, "Andrew, no matter what you want to do, just be the best at what you can do." So I took those words to heart, and those nights that I went with him. One time I went to the preemie ward where they had the premature babies, and this is when I decided, no, I don't think I can do medicine. He had a small premature baby who's trying to get a line into or intravenous, right? So the lights were on of the incubator. It was warm, and I'm just there next to him watching him, and he gets a rubber band and he placed it on the crown of the baby's head to pop a vein out of there. So I was like, wait a second. Now I started getting woozy, and then he got that needle and he kind of darted it right in there, and that was it for me. After that, I said, yeah, that's
Whoa.
that's a little too much. So when the day came around to follow your parents to work, I wasn't going to go to Gorgas. I was going to wake up at 4 in the morning or 3:30 and go with Captain Jerry Laxo. I don't know if any of you all recall him. So he was a longtime pilot on the canal, and I was in 7th grade. So me and his son, Kevin, were buddies back then. And so we got on board, and at about 4 in the morning on a northbound transit, I'll never forget. And I said, you know what? This is all right. You know, getting up early in the morning may be a little bit tough, but this is something that I could probably see myself doing. And that was in 7th grade. Now,
Wow.
That's cool. So I mean, you kind of set your sights on at that young age. I mean, did you just, that's when you decided, and then your trajectory from there was you always knew what it was?
Well, that's when I decided. In 7th grade, I was like, I never really talked about it much, or I went all the way to 14th grade at PCC, you know, just and everybody was going to Florida, to go to college. But back then, they all assumed that I'd be going to Florida. But the next thing you know, Andrew was off to Texas Maritime at Galveston, Texas. And it seems like yesterday, but that was in I'm dating myself, of course, but that's okay. 1985, I arrived there the summer of 85, and it was hot. It was in Texas, maritime port, beach city, middle of summer. And the good thing was I brought with me from Panama Canal College was that good old WSI, or Water Safety Instructor Certificate, I got in John Stromberg's class.
I got that one too.
that was the most valuable thing for me, because day one of arriving on campus, I was working at the pool. I was a lifeguard. And
wow.
And so, that was a pretty good transition. And the school and that maritime life, that's when your life really takes a change. A maritime life, a sailor's life, going to that school set the foundation for what I was going to be doing in the maritime industry. From then on, I was living, eating, dreaming, sleeping the maritime world. And that was quite a good place to make that initial start, because everything was hands-on. Back in that day at Texas Maritime, which is a branch of Texas A&M, they had a training school, a training ship, excuse me. This training ship built in 1940 something from World War II, steam powered, but a very good platform, because the school was small, and the 4 years that I was there, about 3.5 years. The 3.5 years, because believe it or not, some credits transferred from PCC to A&M, so I was able to cut out a semester. So that was good, including Mr. Tucker's history class. I don't know if anybody took Mr. Tucker's history class. That was one of my favorite classes. But so that cut a semester out, and it worked. We had a trimester, right? What's it called? I don't remember. Anyways, you had the fall class, the fall semester, spring semester, and in the summer, we'd all move out of the dorm and onto the ship and take off for 60 days. And I mean, we went from Rio de Janeiro to back then it was Leningrad, USSR, and every place in between. The instructors, the crew, and the cadets, and I'll never see times like that again. But what a foundation for learning.
Sure, that must be a life experience you'll never forget.
Yeah, seriously, 60 days out at sea, just traveling around the world.
How did your duties change during those 60 days? Were they set in the beginning, or did you rotate? How did that work?
Excellent question, HB. Nobody would have thought to answer that. You'd think you're just going out there, but it was structured. It was a 3-day rotation. 1 day of bridge watch. All right, so it could be on the 4 to 8, 8 to 4, or the 4 to 8, 8 to 12, or 12 to 4. So, and that means morning and evening, right? When I say 4 to 8, so you're at 4 to 8, and then you're 16 to 20 in the afternoon. Bridge watch, you go up there with your platoon, you bring all your equipment, and you stand watch with a licensed officer. And he basically didn't say anything unless there's a problem. You'd navigate, you'd take bearings and sights, radio communication, change course, whatever it is. And so that went on for 1 day. The next day, you'd shift to classroom. So on board, we had rules of the road, navigation, celestial navigation, terrestrial navigation. And these are classroom, actual classrooms. You sit down with the instructor, and they talk about it. But actually, you can look out the porthole when they're talking about taking a celestial sight of Jupiter, for example. I didn't like to use planets much, but in addition to that, I'm getting off a topic, but I'll get back to that in a second. So we had bridge watch, classroom, and then a day of maintenance. Yeah, that's right. We were on that old gal, chipping and painting and scrubbing and up on the foremast, on the aftermast, you name it. We had the bosun that was in charge.
Were you on the poop deck?
He looked a salty old dog that looked exactly like you would imagine. And in addition to all three of those things going on, you had your celestial project and your terrestrial project and some other project. So all these projects, all these things, and they wanted to overload you because that's what it's like being at sea. You know, you're the doctor, the lawyer, the policeman, the cook, the cleaner. It's all in its little world encapsulated, and you better know how to do everything good or well enough to survive all at the same time as well. So multitasking, if you're not into multitasking, this isn't a profession for you. So we had those three watches, and they'd rotate through until we came to port. When we got to port, a little chance to go and explore. You do have one duty section that stayed on board to do security rounds and welcome guests. We'd always welcome people from all over the world to take tours on our training vessel. We were very proud of the vessel. It was called the Texas Clipper, and 473 feet long by 74 feet wide. And it was one of the four aces during World War II. It was used as a troop transporter, and so it had a lot of spaces for the cadets. And when we got to port, we were in port maybe 3-4 days, and of one of those days, you'd have the duty to remain on board, give tours, make sure there's no flooding or fires going on. And by the way, when the ship was berthed at the campus, all during the school year, you'd also have a watch rotation to stay on board after school hours, and to make sure there's no flooding and no fire, and just do some rounds on there. And that gave you a sense of that initiated, because as you were an underclassman, you would do the basic tasks, and as you grew in time and years and experience, then your responsibilities became more encompassing. And by the time you were a senior, you were running that watch, and by the time you were a senior, you were standing that bridge watch just like a licensed officer. If you had a junior or a sophomore under you, then he would probably be on the helm steering, and they'd all be reporting to you just like sailors on a ship would be. So it was a very well-structured training facility, very well-structured.
Andy, and how many were you on the ship?
We had I would say this was interesting because we were the only school that took prep cadets. And so let's break them down by class. We had the senior cadet, the junior cadet, the sophomore cadet, and then the prep cadet. The prep cadet came right out of high school, and they did not get involved in the navigation or in any of the maintenance. They were there to take like English or math. It was like a summer school at sea program. So there was a good 100 of them. So 100 in each class. So there was almost 400 cadets, I think, at any one time, plus the staff and crew. So I'd say we're close to 500 people on board there. If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember the exact numbers.
Oh, goodness. Did you get to meet every single person on the ship? Was that possible?
By the time the summer was through, there was all kinds of sea stories, very interesting social atmosphere. We'd have a chance to unwind a little bit in the evening times to they'd have the after deck movie on a big screen outside, and that's a chance to socialize, to mingle and to get to know your shipmate a little bit then, and then that created some bonds, and that when you went ashore, you had your buddy to go ashore with, and so there was plenty of chance to meet and socialize, exchange information for if you have a project. Now, the cadets, the Corps cadets, was distinctly separated in the sense that we were focused on our careers, while the prep cadets were just there, summer school. Some of them, very few, said, "Hey, this is something I could see myself doing," and would enroll the next fall and continue in that career. But most of them,
Amazing.
they were there. They took their English, they took their math, they took their history course, and then went off.
So they had their scholastic adventure, so to speak.
Yeah, it was. And what we had.
Hey, I wanted to mention before we get too much further, Captain Andrew brought some treats for the fam scallions. Those of you who are tuned in, we're going to have a quiz, and there's going to be some prizes involved.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We're going to ask you.
Let me elaborate on that. So,
At the
all right.
end of the show.
At the end of the show, I am
Show the
3 of these. There's going to be what do we call them? Trivia questions about the canal.
Yeah.
Yeah, trivia questions,
Yes.
right? And the first, I guess, how do you all want to run it? The first correct answer that pops up, right?
First correct answer that pops up gets the hat.
Boom.
All right, yeah. So I have 3 of these. Now these hats are special hats because these are quality products from, not that I'm advertising for them, from the Corps. The Corps is out of California, Santa Barbara, and they are they make 90% of the hats that go to U.S. naval vessels. So years ago, you know, one of the traditions coming through the canal, the Navy ships like to give hats, and they gave me one of their hats, and I said, "Hey, this is a good hat." You know, I appreciate a good hat with a nice brim, and also with a 3-inch brow here. Most have 2.5-inch. This is 3, so you get a lot of information here. Full colored, embroidered with what we call these here, scrambled eggs. That's right, with the scrambled eggs. Yeah,
Scrambled eggs.
That's an added bonus. So these are
Top
put
quality.
together. I put them together, and I have various colors. I have them in blue. The traditional red for the Panama Canal Pilot was back in the day when the locomotive operators could identify who's the man up there giving the orders, and that was back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, red was the hat of the pilot. And this is a special one that I made that says Master. No one can get these, of course, because you have to have an unlimited tonnage license to get this. This is what I give as a gift. I give these out to when I go on my transits. I made these special, and they're really appreciative of getting these hats. So this one, instead of saying pilot, I put this one as see here, it says Master, which is the captain of the vessel or the man in charge of the ship that I have boarded to transit. So these are new for 2021, and I haven't even given one out yet.
Very cool. Very cool. We got a couple of shout outs. Tina McBride is tuned in. She says, El Capitan. Conan Herring is like Sopa Locos. And Ralphie Furlong says, midship. I get the first hat. We Richard Grimison says, I recuse myself from the trivia. Yeah. He's got to know all that stuff.
Richard, yeah. He would definitely know all the answers. As we know, Richard was
Hugo Cabrera from Colon Site says, scrambled eggs for commander and captain. There we go. We got a lot of people tuned in. This is going to be a great show. So let's jump back into your history. So you went through the education. How did you go from the education part to the bridge in the canal? What's the transition there?
All right. So another interesting question, because a lot of people want to know, well, what is the roads to leading to being a pilot in the canal? And that's what I love about Panama. We're rich in history, and including working on the canal and getting to work as a pilot. What a lot of history there is in that. Going down to the first Panama Canal Pilot, the recruiting process is very rich in that the back in the old PCC days, they had quite a number of ways to get in there, and I'll go through the three basic ones. Okay. All right.
Okay.
I came the first avenue is coming from sea, as they say it, coming from sea. And so that's what I did. I went through the formal education at the university. I got graduated. You take your Coast Guard exam, and the ink wasn't even wet on my third mate's license that I passed in October of 1988. In October 14th or 15th, I passed. November 1st, I joined my first ship out of Houston, Texas, and we were going to Cherokee Grande in Panama at that time it was a post-Panamax or tanker, and that was the Adonis. And so basically you work your way through that, getting your sea time, going out to sea. That was an interesting adventure in its own. You're 23 years old. I was 23 years old at the time. I'm on a massive tanker going through the safety fairway there, fishing boats and survey boats all crossing it. At me, 2 miles wide on a massive ship, 3 times bigger than the Texas Clipper. And you're on the bridge now, and the captain was nowhere in sight. Hey, you got it. You're up there. You're driving this thing, and you're avoiding. It's like playing Frogger, trying to avoid all these vessels crossing ahead of you and making sure you're in that channel. So that was a pretty intense evening. I'll never forget. Double checking my position, checking on traffic, picking up the radio. Hey, what are you doing? Or where are you going? And so on this tanker in the middle of the night, and using everything from your bag of tricks to make sure you don't hit anything. And we headed south to Cherokee Grande to load up a load of that, what they call ANSCO. That's Alaskan North Slope crude oil. And that would be come down to on the Pacific side in Puerto Charco Azul, and then piped across and loaded in Cherokee Grande. So that's one of the first ways to get to being a pilot is coming from sea, and you have a certain amount of formal education, certain amount of sea time, and you go and do an interview, and they put you on a simulator, and that's part of the selection process. The second way to get into the canal, this is back in 97 when I applied, was through the tugboat fleet. And the tugboat fleet, well, actually, 2 ways. Let me talk about the tugboat fleet. Kind of splits up into a little bit of a bifurcation there, in senses that the people that came into the tugboat fleet, some of these were back in the day professional tugboat masters, but a lot of them came up through the apprentice program. And so the apprentice program, which doesn't exist anymore, and I'm not completely familiar how that is. You come right out of high school, you become an apprentice on the tugs, or the fact of the matter, you could have come from any division within the canal and work your way up through the tug fleet. Bottom line is, you had to spend so much time as the master on a tug in the Panama Canal before you could apply into the pilot and training program. That is the entry-level pilot training program that they have. Entry level is pilot and training, PIT. They have a sub-entry level, which is called the pilot understudy program. That is a third and a half way to come through. And that one, you do have a certain amount of sea time and formal education, but you don't go to the tugs, and you're not quite at the amount of sea time for the PIT. You spend 2 years there and then into the PIT. So you can come from sea, master on the tugs, which you could have been a seagoing person, or you could have come through the apprentice program to come up to the master of tugs, or the pilot understudy program. Those are basically the three ways that they get personnel to join the ranks.
Very interesting. We got a couple more shout outs for you, Cappy. John McGee says, my dad has scrambled eggs. I don't know if that's an inside message or what, but we've also got Christina Seeley. I think you're going to like this shout out. She says, Captain Andrew is very handsome.
Who is that from?
Oh, wow.
Christina Seeley.
You know who? That's my sister, so she's kind of partial to that.
Yeah, you guys got good genes. That's what she's saying there. So you're on this big tanker. Then you've explained to us the three ways to getting to coming in and be a captain. I think I want to go off a little tangent here. It's like, how has training changed since the canal opened for being a pilot, and how has it changed now? I think you guys have some pretty high tech stuff over there at the ACP, don't you?
Oh yeah. I'm telling you, HB, you're coming up with the golden questions. You know, that's why the show is so successful. And again, I just want to say thanks for being here. I'm honored to be with you guys, and I just, what can I say? But the training has changed enormously, and it's also something of another rich piece of historical bit here in the Panama Canal. I wish I knew more in-depth history of the training in the canal. You probably could write a book about it. And I did get a chance when I first started. I talked to the old timers that were here. I talked to people that I trained with, like John Carey, who was my mentor. When I first started here in the PIT program, you were allowed to choose your a mentor, and the mentor, you would be shadowing that guy for 2 weeks. Where he went, you went. Whatever duty time he had, you would have, and you would be right there with him. And at the time, this was in 97, 98, when I first started. John Carey was the #1 senior pilot, and considered one of the top pilots in the canal. And so he was quite essential in forming the foundation in my career. People like John Carey and Jerry Petroni, and we'd all never forget Joe Chamberlain. What a
that was my
classic!
A lot of afternoon and evenings talking, and he would share all these wonderful stories of when he was piloting.
Jody
Chamberlain.
Jody Chamberlain was what a gentleman, what a sailor, it just it was just such a pleasure to be in that jitney with him, and I'd ask him because I like all this history. I love history as you do, HB, and the canal is rich with it, and you know he trained with people that trained with the very first Panama Canal pilot. So that's a connection there that is historical. And so a lot of things were handed down, a lot of traditions in the canal that are used worldwide. Things that like the steering light, something that may seem irrelevant. What is a steering light? And it's something that's impacted the maritime world, and 99% of the ships of the world have this. What is the steering light? It's a small blue light that's required for ships over 100 meters in length. So you're over 100 meters length, you better have a steering light or you're not going to be able to transit. This steering light is just a little blue light on the very front of the boat, very pointy. And so back in the day, and if I'm not mistaken, and if I understand correctly, that was developed and initiated in the canal 50, 60, 70 years ago when night transits were not happening. I don't think full-time night transits started until the late 60s. I think the last transit would finish or start sometime in the early evening. Now, as you know, it goes 24/7. But this steering light on a very dark lake, especially in the lake or in the cut, as you can imagine how dark it is, it's a reference, so you can see what kind of rotation as you're making a turn. Where's that bow going? How fast is it going? Back then, they didn't have all the gadgets that we have today. But you know, it's the as the Navy calls it, the Mark I eyeball. You know that thing doesn't lie to you. So you can have all the electronics in the world, but the Mark I eyeball, or what you see out of your eyes, is one of the primary indicators on obtaining your situational awareness on the canal, and especially at night in the cut. So at the cut or the lake, it's dark, no moon, and you can't see that bow. What are you going to use as a reference? The steering light. It's not red or green, like to get it mixed up with the channel markers, but it's blue. So it's very distinctive. And as you see that thing going from left to right or right to left, it'll give you a good idea of what your the change in your heading is. So
wow,
that's some of the things that were developed here in the canal. There's other stuff that have come about, but as we were talking about the change in training originally, if I'm not mistaken, they had at the very beginning of the canal operation, as you know, it was always under government operation. The U.S.
Oversight.
government initiated, and so being that it is government, the training was integrated into. As you recall, there was how do I explain the different rankings in government jobs, right? This guy's an FE10 or an FE8 or which stands for floating equipment, and it all had progressive rankings, time, and that corresponded to how much money you made. That also was integrated into the training, into the steps. So one of the most longest pilotage training programs probably in the Western Hemisphere is here at the Panama Canal, because before you can take anything through, anything, and I mean anything, you're going to be spending from the day that you walk through the door of the training center until the day that you step aboard anything that comes through the canal, you've probably spent a good 10 to 12 years of
Wow.
training. Yeah, 10 to 12 years.
So you
Wow.
need 10 years of training before you can drive by yourself. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's no.
Or
You're
continuous
driving by
training,
yourself.
even once you're driving.
I'm talking about before you can drive anything, everything that comes through the canal, because the canal is broken down into sizes of vessels, and that corresponds to the individual pilot rating. So we have you start off pilot in training, 6 months. You're going along. You're observing other pilots. And then you take an exam, and the time schedule here, I might be off. And your first, hey, I'm off by myself, 225. Vessels up to 225 feet. All right, the tuna boats, the small bulkers that used to come through here, the minis, those things were a handful. Actually, you had to be a 400 pilot to take those through. These were 2-hatch dry bulk carriers, but they handled like they were the biggest ships in the world because they were so directionally unstable. So anyways, shall we progress? PIT, all right, 6 months, 225. You're there for I forgot how long. Then you go up to 400. I think it is the next one. So you're progressively moving up in size. Now, mind you, all these vessels are beam and draft restricted. These are all under 80 feet in beam. In the canal, the magic number for they measured things historically by beam, because everything was regulated by the width of the locks, which was 110 feet. So you go PIT 225, 400, I think 526, and I might be missing a couple in there. It's been a while, but anyways, that's before you even get to. That's in the training division. You're a training pilot. You're in that division for 2 years. By the time you go PIT to 526, which is your last one, you graduate from there and you become a step 1. 2 years have gone by, and now you're step 1 pilot, and you're limited to unlimited tonnage, but you're restricted to 79 feet in beam, I think it is, and up to maybe 900 feet in length. I can't recall the exact dimensions, but you're there 6 months, then you go to step 2, another 6 months, then you go to step 3, which you're there for a year. Step 4 a year, step 5 a year, step 6 a year, step 7, very big transition, because that's when you start doing the Panamaxes. So 7 years, you won't get the maximum beam into your step 7, I think it is, and that's you're about 8 or 9 years already in your career before you get onto your first Panamax in beam, because the maximum beam in the canal, in the old canal, is 106 feet, or 105.999 feet is the maximum.
The lock is 110, right?
Yeah, the locks are 110, and
wow. So there's not that much room in there, is there?
No, not at all.
Yeah, but don't forget the initial construction was based on the New Jersey class or the Iowa class battleships that were 108. So
okay.
So anyways, you're at step 7, and now you're taking Panama. I'll never forget my first step 7 job, which was the 738-foot dry bulk carrier. I was going southbound, and when you're on anything under 105 foot beam, you just cruise on down to the locks, and you know, you get your tug. You usually get 1 or 2 tugs, but this thing was loaded to 39 feet 6 inches, and a heavy dry bulk carrier. Sometime in middle of dry season, and I just came all the way down, almost to the locks, and kind of like wasn't even thinking about tugs. I was just more concentrating on, this is my first big beamed, heavy draft ship, and I got all the way down within a ship length of the locks without any tugs, and then I realized, hey, you know what? I better get some tugs here. So
Yeah, that's
that was my first experience. So, and that's the thing. Everything's very gradual. You get a lot of time on board, a lot of time of conning time, even though it's not the quantity of ships. You're not on a lot of different ships throughout the year. You're going to be on probably anywhere between 130 to 150 different ships. But the thing is, you're spending a lot of time conning behind the conning. When we talk about conning, it's the control, and we'll get into what a pilot actually does. A lot of people might not understand exactly. They think you get behind the wheel and you're driving it. That doesn't happen that way. Even though in the smaller ships, I can recall in one of the interesting vessels that we did as a limited pilot. That's in your training time that I've talked about. The first 2 years, you're a limited pilot, and you're still part of the training division. One of the vessels that we get on is called the affectionately known as the Chuku Chuku Maru, and so
that's a good name.
And those vessels, well, it's a generic description of a Japanese fishing boat. You know how the Japanese have a lot of this and this maru, and I forgot what maru meant, and it meant something special, and it was in the name of a lot of the naming of their vessels, and I forgot what I knew at one time what maru was about, but it would have the name and then maru. You knew it was a Japanese vessel, and one of their
I sent that question to the research department, Andy. The research department says that the term maru is representing something beloved, and sailors apply this suffix to their ships. The term maru is used in divination and represents perfection and completeness, or the ship as a small world of its own.
And I've also got something else. It says the myth of Hakudo Maru, a celestial being that came to Earth and taught humans how to build ships.
That's it.
We've got a lot of shout outs too. Sorry to interrupt you, Andy, but your fans are out there, man. You got a lot of fans.
Going crazy.
Don Sutherland says, hi, Andrew. Barbara Hopkins says, a pilot's job is very important and stressful job. John McGee says, give away a steering light. A lot of people are talking about steering lights and hats. No, that's not part of the questions. But yes, we're giving away some very special hats at the end of the show if you answer the question properly.
3 of these will be on your head or on your shelf, depending on how you want to display it. Like I said, these are very high quality hats made in Santa Barbara, California, by the famous U.S. Navy hat maker, the Corps. Okay.
The Corps.
So,
Andy, quick question for you. You've been speaking a lot about, you were talking about the experience of, the training and everything, and then what a pilot's job is and how many people don't potentially understand how the job goes. So I wanted to ask you about what it's like when you board a new ship. Because you said sometimes you board about maybe 130 ships a year. So what's it like when you board one? Are they all similar? Are there differences? Do you know what to expect? What's that experience like?
Well, another great question, Joe. There, and it's a montage of everything that you just said, because you have a general idea of what to expect. Some vessels might have some surprises and handling difficulties. They're far and few between. There was one particular class of vessel there are various classes of vessels, and people give the heads up. Hey, this has a small rudder or a weak bow thruster, but you'll have time to adapt to the peculiar behavior of that vessel. Once in a while, you're going to get surprised. As in the point, an example was a certain class of military sea lift command vessel. I forgot what class it was, but it had the rudder. It was probably like a postage stamp rudder, very, very small. So as soon as you stop the engine, it would become directionally unstable. And you just had to keep that in mind as you made your way down through the canal. The canal, the pilot wears a lot of different hats. You got to be you got to be a multitasker. You got to be almost what's a person that is a fortune teller, and you got
jack of all trades.
You got to be thinking way down range as to what you're going to go, where you're going to go, who are you going to meet, where you're going to meet this other opposing traffic, what resources are going to be available, and you got to have all that going on through. And it only adds to the mix when you find yourself aboard one of these vessels with this particular anomaly, that doesn't steer well, or it's affected by the wind, or the visibility. Visibility is always an issue in the canal. You got to see, like I said, Mark 1 eyeball is the best piece of equipment that you could have. So these are all things that with experience, you should be able to quickly pick up what's going on, and what you're going to have in your bag of tricks to be able to handle the situation. To me, it hasn't come up very often, but once in a while. Now, what will come up is which is completely different, is if something doesn't go right, the engine stops or the rudder sucks, that's completely different. But we're talking about particular handling characteristics. Most of the ships have similar equipment. A lot of vessels have different propulsion, and that's something to keep in mind. There's some propellers and rudders all in one, which is like the Azipod. A lot of those cruise ships have that type of propulsion. There's ships that have variable pitch propellers, like on an airplane, and the pitch changes. Instead of having a fixed pitch or direct reversing type engine where you have to stop the engine and be able to go astern, and then the direction of the propeller will change to bring you a stern propulsion. There's the variable pitch where the engine never stops and the pitch changes. And then those are things that have particular characteristics you need to be aware of.
Whoa.
So
we got a live question here. Is it true? This is from Barbara Hopkins. Is it true that a smaller ships are more difficult to get through because of water movement compared to the larger ships?
Well, that is a yes and no question. Yes, there could be, it's affected by current and wind, but the positive side on is you have a lot more time to recover if things do go bad. On a smaller ship, you can get yourself in all kinds of trouble, but you have more time to fix it. With a bigger ship, that time is not available. And when things go wrong, they go wrong and quickly. And you don't have that space either with a bigger ship. In a bigger ship, you don't have that luxury of, if you're talking about a ship that's 45 feet in beam and another ship that's 145 feet in beam, that extra 100 feet goes a long way in your recovery.
Now, I've got a question for you, Andy. Something I always found fascinating was how you guys handle the radios as a pilot. Can you explain that to us on how you communicate with other people?
Yeah.
All right. Well, another historical part of the canal is communication. And there was once a display on communication at the chief pilot's office. Captain Chet Lavalas had it set up, and with the different types of radios that we use. There was a time in the canal when they were just using flags and signals, and the arrow, still a traditional, before you had any kind of formal communication, they were using flags. The arrow that you see, it has different meanings when it's at 90 degrees, when it's at 180 degrees, when it's straight up. There's all kinds of signals in the cut that they use in flags. So including talking to the locomotives, which to this day, if I'm not mistaken, they're still bringing the lights, the hand lights, to signal the locomotive operators what you want to do with their wires in case you have no radio communication. So that's a historic piece that they probably used before radios. They were using those things, and I say hand lights because they work at nighttime. There's a piece that goes on the end of the flashlight that is a bright orange or yellow. So in the day you can see it, or you can see that your arms, and there's a whole list of instructions. And if you would ask me today to do those, I would get the basic instructions down. I'd stop the ship anyways and say, hey, stop everything. My radio is crapped out. But in the event of radio comm failures, those lights are still given to the pilots these days in a bag, along with the cross-bridge radio. So the radios that we use in the canal are very special radios that have been frequencies designed for the canal under the UHF frequency. So those of you that know the radio bands, we're not even going to go into that because I can't give you an explanation of UHF. Well, it's an ultra high frequency. We have VHF, which is very high frequency, which everybody has out on their boat, or should have, right? To communicate with flamenco signal, you use the VHF. So lots of ports in the world use VHF to talk to the tugboats and operate that way. We do not operate on the VHF. We don't want anybody getting in on our traffic. We don't want anybody stepping or talking on the radio at the same time, because it is a very concise and concentrated, orchestrated event. So you don't want any clown coming in there. Hey, you know where the fish are biting? So we have dedicated channels. So we have dedicated channels on dedicated frequency with repeaters all throughout the canal. And believe it or not, in the canal, we have, I'm going to guess 24 channels that we use minimum. And there's a channel for everything. So you have the channel for when you first get underway, but there's a group of basic channels, which are about 5 or 6. And you go changing them as you get to that certain place. Channel to talk to MTC, channel to talk to your tugs, channel to talk to the locks and the lockmaster, channel to talk to the launch operators when you're tying up, and then a channel if you're in the lake, a channel if you're on the Atlantic side, a channel if you're in the Pacific side, a channel if there's an emergency, a channel if you're on harbor duty, because don't forget the Panama Canal pilots not only transit ships, but they also take care of the 2 ports on the northern and southern terminus. So they have their dedicated channels. So, and it is to create a safe environment of communication, because as you all well know, communication is the key to a lot of things, including in the Panama Canal. And you need to be a good communicator. You need to be able to get your message across clearly, concisely, and quickly. And that's why we have these different channels. In addition to, and you can imagine, in the old set of locks coming in, you have not only your locks channel, you're on that locks channel. Let's go to channel. All right, so you initiate the transit, channel 1 Pacific. You come on down, you're talking to MTC, you're talking to opposing traffic, which as a backup channel, we use channel 13 VHF for ship to ship, in addition to the transit radio. And so you come down, you're reporting your position to marine traffic. Now you're talking to your tugs and you're saying, all right, we're going to Miraflores Locks. Let's go to channel 6, UHF channel 6. Tugs go to channel 6. You check in with your tugs. You check in with the lockmaster. You have your other control pod aboard. You have your canal seaman on board, and he brings a bag of goodies, which includes the sticks for directing the locomotives, the light sticks, and he brings a cross bridge radio. And the cross bridge radio is you're able to communicate with the guy on the other side of the wing and to your bosun fore and aft. So you have 2 sets, 2 radios, 2 tugs, up to 8 locomotives, the lockmaster, your bosun forward, your bosun aft, and the assisting pod on the other wing, and maybe even a bow or stern pilot, which they've mostly eliminated, but they do still have them. And so you better grab that. You know which radio it is. It is on the right channel, because we were Zooming long before Zoom was going on. We were at a very multitask, a lot of people talking to it the other time. So the guy on the wing will be telling you, all right, check your bow, check your bow.
For clarification.
The bosun could be calling, oye, Capi, esas líneas no sirven por aquí. And then you got the lockmaster saying, all right, I'm going to be spilling the water. And then the tugboat guy could be calling you, yeah, I just lost a unit, so I only got half power right now. All right, keep pushing. So communication is a key, and we have quite a number of tools to make that happen.
Very interesting. We've got a question come in from Larry Kepke, my cousin. Ever have a ship's master not want to listen to your command?
Good question, man. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've in my time now, I've been here since '97, and I can probably think of 1 or 2 times that there's been maybe a hesitation or a question, but not full on non-compliance, because that's handled very quickly, and some of the things that the most common thing you might see is that the master might be fiddling with the bow thruster on his own, and which is of course very it could be quite a problem. You're trying to do one thing, he's trying to do the other thing. You're both trying to get the vessel through safely, but his idea might be opposite of what you have in your mind, and there's no time to explain what's going in your mind, because it's very dynamic and things are happening very quickly. So that has not happened. I've heard lots of stories, and I got a lot of stories along that line, but I've been fortunate and just had a couple things where they might be playing with it, with the bow thruster, and I'll make it clear, yeah, you can't do that, and you're not going to do that anymore, and that pretty much ends it right there. And I explained it to him afterwards, and I explained, just so you have a good idea of why, what's going on. I explained how only one person can be making the commands. In some cases now, with the cruise ships, they have massive amount of equipment to move that thing in a 360, whatever you want. In those cases, I work with the skippers, I work with the master, and I let him know what I need from him. In those cases, we do have a kind of a joint working environment. But even with the master of a cruise ship, there's been times, when I need something, I let it know what I need, and it's executed immediately. And that's happened. I've been fortunate in the means of communicating with the master, letting him know what's going to be done and keeping them informed. I've limited the amount of conflict or counter commands. I really haven't had that many. I've heard some very some pretty interesting events that have happened.
I want to ask you two words, Andy. Nuclear sub. What can you tell us without having to kill us?
With the nuclear sub, that's a special qualification, by the way. We kind of got off the training point. That you train all the way up, like I was saying, to step 7, 8, 9. With the new expanded locks, now we have step 10 and 11. Back in the days of the 30s and 40s, I heard there was step 25. That's what I heard.
What?
All the way to step 25. Then it went down to
crazy.
Step 12, step 18, somewhere in there. Who knows what that was all about back then? These are just rumors now. Today and day, we have a step 11 is the Daddy Mac pilot. He takes anything through. That brings us to our first prize question. Can anybody tell me in feet, I want to know the dimensions of the largest ship in feet to go through the Panama Canal. Okay. What is the largest permitted vessel to date to go through the canal? Plus or minus, I'll give you plus or minus 2 feet on the length, and I'll give you plus or minus 1 foot on the beam. And I want to know the draft as well. What's the draft? That portion of the ship below the waterline. So anyways, we'll repeat that question later. It's for this hat right here. This is the blueberry camouflage from the U.S. Navy with scrambled eggs. So
I think Aquilino Arias is tuning in, and I think he wants a hat. So Aquilino, you better pay attention and answer that question correctly.
So on nuclear submarines, a separate qualification for that. And I've been through, I think, 2 or 3 times on a nuclear submarine. And one time, the very top-notch crews that you get on there. And all the subs I've been on are on the 688s, which is the Los Angeles class attack submarine, I believe. So the 688, that was the first one. And an interesting story, I was coming southbound in the cut. This is a couple years ago when we were having issues with North Korea, if you recall. And it was just like on the hunt for Red October. The pilots, when we come on board, and again, this is a circumstance that you may work a little bit with the master, and we don't bring any canal seamen on board there, just the bosun, a bosun forward and a bosun aft, because the sub's crew are the winches. They hand crank that wire on to bring the wire on. So, but anyways, we're southbound through the cut, and it's like on the hunt for Red October. Flash message, traffic coming in. Hawaii has indicated incoming, potential incoming missiles. Remember when they sent that alarm off by mistake?
Wait, can I pause the story? Sorry. Can I pause that story? Because I think we have an answer to your question here on Instagram from Mayra Elena. Triton, 1,211 feet.
Okay, what's the beam and the draft on that? She's got to
We're
get.
gonna need the.
We got to get all the dimensions in there.
All right. Well, she's missing some information then, so hopefully she'll come back with the rest of it. For now, she has Triton and 1,211.
She's on the right track, that's for sure. She's on the right track. So, the submarine. So I was on the conning tower, or on the sail as they call it, and I was there with the skipper. The skipper's on there, or the XO, and they have the navigator, and so we're all up there, and it got deadly quiet on the sail, and then the captain got on the radio and says, "Get my wife on the line," because they were out of Hawaii, and so of course a few minutes later it was a false alarm. But so going through on a nuke sub is exciting, and it's interesting. The vessels are difficult to handle in the sense that you can move the stern all day long. That stern, you can move it all day long because it has the outboard is what they call it, but it's actually an APU, or an auxiliary propulsion unit, and it comes down just behind you. This engine drops down, and you can rotate it 360 degrees. So you can slow yourself down, you can propel yourself with it, you can turn this, move your stern around, but you also have the rudder back there. So when you come in on a nuclear sub, the idea is, where's that bow going to go? And the bow's got the bow fins, it's got the sensitive stuff on the bow. You have to be thinking, if I move the stern here, where's the bow going to go? You have to place that bow so it is not anywhere near anything that will put a dent in it. And so that's basically the basics of going through a 688 is bow placement. All right, I'm going to come here, and I'm thinking I'm going to move the stern this way. My bow is going to come out this way. I'll come a little bit wider and slower, and then you want to get those wires on as quick as you can. And so I'm there when we're coming into Miraflores, and I wait till the gates are open. Then essentially you want to wait for that current to dissipate. You don't want to mess around with any kind of currents, and wait for that to dissipate. Have the gates open, have everybody in their position, the locomotive operators. And when that first heaving line comes on, I'm just, let's move it on that number one wire. Let's get that thing on board here as soon as possible. And basically that's the basics of taking a nuke through there. But when you get to go through to get on to the sail, you get on, you go through the galley or the mess room, and everybody's packed in there, and you get to go through the sub. So that's interesting to see what's going on. They have tons of security, and pretty much that's basically it's a half a day for you, because you get a relief in Gamboa on that, because you're outside the whole way on that, and they don't have much of a tolda up there.
No. That's very cool. We've got a lot of questions coming through on Instagram, actually. Andy, I've also got another guess at your answer. So first, I'm gonna go with the guest at the question, and it's Aquilino Arias chiming in. He says, with the new locks, the Panama Canal is able to handle vessels with overall length of 366 meters, 1,201 feet, 49 meters beam, increased by the Canal Authority effective 1st June 2018 to 51.25 meters and 15.2 meters in draft, or 50 feet.
That sounds like a copy-paste answer to me.
It does.
But the thing is, see, he missed that answer, because the 366 in length has been surpassed with this the Triton, which is actually 367 point something. It's like 11 in length, and because the
12,
max max I think it was 1205 or something like that. So that's why it was kind of a tricky question. And those are the largest ships that come through. I'll let the moderators there, of course, determine who gets that hat. But the correct answer is that Triton is the vessel, and there is a few sister ships of that class, and so it's as HB mentioned, I'm not only one of the pilots, but now I'm in the office, so I'm one of the port captains. And it was all of 2020, we were tasked to, in the port captain's office, we were tasked to take those ships particularly through. This year, 2021, the Pilots Association will be responsible for that. But coming aboard those vessels and taking them northbound was quite challenging and interesting. And I enjoyed bringing those into the new set of locks. One interesting thing in the port captain's office, one of our requirements as the port captain is we only work in the new set of locks. I'm not sure how it's going to be this year, but last year, all my transits were in the new set of locks. And as supervisors, it was a kind of a essence of, take the lead on the new set of locks and work there only. So that's where my transits, I'm required to do so many transits a year, and they were dedicated only in the new set of locks. And one of my favorite assignments is third control from Gamboa northbound, and that's probably become one of the most challenging maneuvers as you go northbound into Agua Clara. There's no approach wall. You don't have anything to lean on or to guide you into the locks. It's basically there's an opening and get that thing in there straight. So there's no approach wall that's on either side as you get in, make your approach. So it's basically threading the needle there. So that's challenging, and that takes a complete concentration to be able to do that. And this time of the year, it's even more so challenging as you have the wind out of the north. I was in Cologne on Thursday, I think it was. We had 25 knots sustained. 25 knots of wind sustained.
Very strong.
Wow.
With gusts up to 32. I mean, that's solid. That's solid. 25 knots. In case anybody's wondering what 25 knots is, drive down the road at about 31 or 32 miles per hour and stick your head out. That's 25 knots. 31 miles an hour, if I'm not mistaken.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
I've got a question for you, Andy. How is being a canal pilot different from other canals and ports in the world? And is there a prestige included with that title?
Oh, another great question. I'll tell you, the Panama Canal Pilot during the war, World War II, during the 60s and 70s, there's another historical part of that. They were the Mac Daddy of piloting. Everything came through the canal, and we filtered a lot of ships and set a lot of standards. People from that worked here wrote ship handling books. We had a great school, and Panama Canal pilots were known all over the world. And in the 70s and 80s and 90s, that started to wane a little bit. Because now other ports became bigger. They were handling bigger ships. And and the canal was kind of like stuck in a time warp a little bit because we could only handle ships up to a certain size. In the ports, which were small, sure, post-Panamaxes came in, but not on the frequency as other ports. So 80s, 90s, maybe the prestige was starting to diminish a little bit. But that has all changed. And now with the expansion, the canal is back to the biggest and baddest ships that plow the seas. And the job of the Panama Canal Pilot is out there in the forefront again with this new expanded canal. Yes, there's other ports that have locks. Yes, there's other ports that have rivers and channels and difficult slips. But as far as having it all, the canal is one of the top places. We have it all. We have control, absolute control of the navigation, which is essential for the operation. We have locks, we have channels, we have fresh water, we have salt water, we have 2 ports. So the mixed bag of operations is quite unique here. There's other locks, bigger places, but nothing that compares to the canal locks, because these locks are 3 sets of locks. In other parts of the world, so I think they have maybe 1 step. I don't think there's any that have 2 step. And going from lock to lock is a particular challenge that you're not going to find anywhere else in the world. They have locks all over Northern Europe, Germany, in Canada, but they're all single step. So you get in, you get up, and you get out. Not that I'm diminishing the work there by any means, but here we get in and you go to another chamber. And that's very, very challenging from chamber to chamber. And with the small tolerances that you have there. We don't have locomotives in these new locks, as you know. It's all done by tugs. And that's where it's between the tugs and the pilot, and the commands given can be multiple commands at quick succession, and that is very pertinent to working from lock to lock. As the years have gone by, it's become a smoother operation, and the pilots have done an excellent job. Initially, it took some time to get used to it, and there were some dings and dents. There's no doubt about it. But nowadays, it's a smooth operation as people have gotten used to it, experienced to it, and perfected and fine-tuned their ship handling. It's something that you're not going to find in other parts of the world. So the Panama Canal Pilot on a daily basis has continuous 24/7 operation of varying degrees of ship handling, from ports to channels to locks, rain, sun, and fog. The pilots are keeping things moving, and it's not only that, guys, that makes Panama Canal unique. It's something that you don't find in many places of the world, is the combined difficulty of the operation and the timing. The canal, to make it bread and butter, you have to get that ship there in so much time in order to get the next guy behind you and ahead of you. It's all synchronized. So not only do you have to worry about your ship in hand and maneuvering it, but you got to get to point A on time, not too early, not too late, but on time. So that way the operation is continuous. You get there too late,
True that.
you know, it can create a problem for the guy behind you. And now you start backlogging time, you're losing time. And that's why it's such a synchronized event. And that's an added dimension or stress or factor to piloting that is unique in the canal. People don't, you get down there, whatever, you do your ship handling, and then you say steady. You know, midship, steady. It's not like that. A lot of people think it is. There's a lot of different layers in there. You're meeting.
It's like clockwork, right? You got to be there, and you got to make sure that everything gets done the way.
Yeah, especially because there's only limited amount of tugs, limited amount of resources. You can't get down there early, and now you don't have any tugs because it's on the ship ahead of you. Well, now what have you gotten yourself into? You gotten yourself into a really predicament. And these are things that over time and with experience, the Panama Canal Pilot has perfected down to the minute. He's crossing that arrow right on time. He's leaving on time. He's meeting that LNG. Now we have a new type of cargo, quite volatile, the liquefied natural gas vessel, which in case this is one of these here, if you see this. Compliments of the great photographer Kenny Myers, another local artist. This is another LNG, one of the new customers coming through the canal. Very concerning cargo. It's stored in temperatures exceeding 160 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 160 degrees. So we're talking about if you get that on deck, it's one of the concerns is metal fatigue. It basically eats through the metal. That's why I think these come in like stainless steel spears. But anyways, that type of ship you have to meet at certain speeds, certain locations, and it's all based on timing and to keep in mind. So yes, ports around the world are similar. Definitely have lock systems, have channel systems, freshwater, saltwater, brackish water, windy conditions, and here it's just quite a combined environment of a little bit of that you see around the world, but added to it that most ports, I don't think have a time schedule. Maybe they got to meet the tide here, meet another vessel there, but it's not so constraining as it is here in the canal. There might be exceptions, but I'm talking about most ports. Guy shows up, boards, and they have their challenges within the port, and done so. One of the old sayings, I think, that originated here. There was quite a few sayings that were quite unique here. One of them was, "Hey there, Cap. The schedule is flexible, but your ship isn't." So, what that says is, don't rush to get down there and trying to beat the schedule, because you can have some time here and there, but if you get there too fast and you hit something, your ship is not going to be flexible. There's going to be some damage, and some others.
And Andy, sorry, speaking of hitting things, we've got a couple of questions that have come through on Instagram. I think people are pretty interested in hearing about your experiences. So I'm just going to say all three of them at the same time, and you can kind of just like dive into them as best you see fit. So the first one is, what would be your weirdest experience? What would be your most epic experience? And have you ever had any close encounters with cayucos?
Okay, so the most, what was the first one? Unique experience or epic?
The weirdest experience. Is there like a monster? Is there like a monster in Gatun Lake that came out one time and said hi to you, like the Loch Ness monster?
No, speaking of which, I was on a passenger ship southbound in Mamay, and that's at the north end of Gamboa Reach. And that brings us to our second question. Who can give me the heading for the Atlantic Channel northbound. What is the correct course to steer within half a degree of the Atlantic Channel? What's the heading for the Atlantic Channel northbound within half a degree? This hat is yours. So I was southbound on a passenger ship.
Going, actually,
What's that? So I was southbound.
Tell my buddy Aquilino to check out Wikipedia quick.
He's super upset. He says Wikipedia got him the first one wrong. So who knows where he's going to go next?
The southbound on a passenger ship, and I saw one of those swimming birds. What are they? The cormorant?
Cormorants? Yeah, the one that deep dive. They go into the water for.
I saw one of those off on the west side dive into the water, and when he popped up, a caiman came whoop right at him like a dart.
What?
I was like, whoa, look at that. That was pretty interesting.
Oh, that sounds cool.
I'll go through several things because something very unique happened.
Do it.
I'll go through a couple that happened to me and one or two things that I've heard about. So that was interesting, to witness that act of nature. There was a couple times lost engines, and we're cruising along in the lake. You lose engine, so there was nothing you could do. We're just cruising off. This is in Tabernia. You all remember Tabernia. And I went out to the bridgeway and I looked as we went out of the channel, and you see the buoy bouncing along the side of the ship, and it just ran up into the mud. No damage, but it was interesting to see the buoy just banging along the side of the ship into Tabernia. That was years ago. I was also on I think carrying gasoline or something. Again, lost engines right on the turn, and there was another ship coming and had to drop the anchors. In that episode, nothing happened. We didn't hit anybody, didn't go out of the channel, but that kind of was get your adrenaline going. Let's see. We haven't had any kind of. I've responded to a couple instances as the port captain. When they hit that bridge, I responded to that scene. That was when they hit the Gamboa Bridge. The vessel.
Yeah.
Had a steering casualty there. There's something wrong with the steering mechanism. I don't know the details exactly of that. I was the first on-scene guy representing the canal, and got there and assessed the situation.
Everyone was sending those videos around on WhatsApp, and then there's people filming from the bridge, and I heard over this guy's shoulder someone on the radio, and I was like, wait a second, I know that voice. That's Captain Andy right there on the spot cleaning that thing up.
Captain Andy making it happen.
Yeah, I ran out there right when it happened. One of the first things we had to do was notify the train. Hey, stop the train! Because
right.
I mean, where else? Where else in the world could you have a collision between the train and a ship? Because that's not the first time. I think
that would have been
at the end of Gamboa Reach, one time a vessel lost engines. A small vessel, but it had the bow hanging over the railroad track. The bow was hanging over the railroad track, and that could have been interesting. That it didn't damage the track or anything, but the train could have come around the corner and made contact, and so the report would have been collision between train and a ship. I mean, imagine that.
Wow. That's
So
like something
another
out of a James Bond.
interesting thing. A lot of people during that incident were saying things that were inaccurate, and it's interesting to be in the middle of something and knowing exactly what's going on, and speculation. And this is the times we're in. where instant information comes out and inaccurate information, and I've noticed that, and so it's kind of concerning that that the facts are not displayed as in reality, and a lot of people came up
Right.
and said different things that weren't correct about that situation. But for nomenclature, we have a lot of nomenclature in the canal and around the world that they use in maritime. Does anybody know the difference between an elision and a collision? Because what that was an elision. We can look that up and get the exact definition. And if I'm not mistaken, a collision is between two moving objects, and an elision is when only one is moving. So I lied it with that pier or that that structure. Trestle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here
We've got an answer. We've got an answer to your second trivia question. We have Christina Seeley writes in with 9 degrees 18 minutes north, 79 degrees 55 minutes west.
Yeah.
Wow. Now she deserves a hat for that.
Well, that's my
just Panama.
sister, Joe. That's my sister again. Yeah. And I love her to death. I do. But she said she is a medical doctor after she did take the road that my father wanted me to go. So, and she should stick to needles, because that is that's a location. I asked for the heading of the channel, the heading that you steer the ship, right? But that's all right.
Oh no!
I wouldn't know how to take a temperature, so.
She didn't have a follow-up statement after that answer. She had a follow-up statement trying to buffer. She said, "Dr. B would have been super proud, Captain Andy."
Well, the thing is, HB, that is a latitude. Latitude, we're latitude and longitude on the face. So my question, maybe it wasn't explained properly, but we're in the Atlantic Channel. And what course do you steer in that channel or in that reach? There are numerous reaches in the canal, and each one has its north and south heading or direction that the ship steers. The one is reciprocal to the other depending on the direction you're going, and that's in degrees true. We have magnetic headings and we have true headings, and this question was referring to the true heading, and magnetic headings are depends on a number of factors, but we like to use true headings in the canal, and that's the heading that's given out through the gyro on the ship. And so the question again, her answer, nice but incorrect, is what is the heading for a ship to steer on the Atlantic Channel? That's the name of a reach in the Panama Canal. We have Tabernia, Buena Vista, Peña Blanca, Gamboa Reach, the Pacific entrance channel, Balboa Reach. We have Paraiso, Cucaracha, Cascadas, Empire. These are all different reaches. Correct. And they all have different courses. And we even have a couple of new reaches for the new expanded canal. For Agua Clara, there's a Banana Reach even. Banana Reach, and Victoria Reach is one. And so there's all these reaches have courses, and they're references that the pilot uses to make sure that he's on his side of the reach or in the middle as he deems necessary. So this reach is on the Atlantic side. So that's true. It's one of the last reaches or channels, and it's called the Atlantic Channel. And there's a particular course that you must steer to get yourself in and out of the canal. And so we're looking for that course.
All right. Let's throw some more questions at Captain Andy here. Are there any female Panama Canal pilots?
Yes.
That's a good
yes.
question, HB.
Yeah.
How many?
The very first one was Sarah Terry. She came up through the tugs, if I believe correctly. I think she's still somewhere around. She was in the port captain's office when I first got here. She's long retired. So that was the first one. And since then, there's two more female pilots that are pretty senior. And then we have two more that just joined recently. When I say recently, I'm saying within the last 3 years. So that's a total of 4 active and 1 inactive, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not involved in the training. I know there's 2 for sure in the senior ranks, and then 2 that I'm pretty sure there's 2, maybe there's 3 that have just joined recently.
Very interesting. Are you have any questions for Captain Andy, Joe?
I actually have one from Aquilino, and it's a question to the question you posed just now. He says, going into the canal or going out of the canal to the Atlantic?
Yeah, northbound. 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 What does that mean? You're heading north. That's all I'll say about that. So
Northbound, Aquilino. Figure it out if you want a hat. Get the right answer.
all right. And the number 3rd question for the last hat that we had is, this is the hardest of them all. Who can tell me what a knuckle duster is? Okay. Who can tell me what a knuckle duster is in the Panama Canal?
That's when you get upset with the ship captain that you're going to see and you punch him in the face. You give him a knuckle duster if he doesn't let you take control of the ship.
Back to interesting things and events that have happened. You know, this 2020 brought about some very extreme situations all over the world. We've all experienced difficulties in different levels, some more than others. But I think globally, it's impacted our social well-being, our mental health to some extent, some more than others. And the canal is not immune to any of that. We had a situation where the COVID procedures were so extreme, you know, of social distancing, and that we maintain a very strict and successful program in the canal to not infect any of the clients, and vice versa, in protecting the
Can you elaborate a little bit on what you've had to incorporate?
Well, we've had
exactly, because
they've had testing, temperature checking, personal equipment that has been provided, and even the extent of medical personnel that screen all the personnel that come into the reporting stations, providing temperatures and gel and having face masks as a mandatory requirement. So. All these things have made a difference, but the canal has continued to operate and has been serving world commerce uninterrupted. And COVID has been an impactful thing on a lot of our daily lives, and including here in the canal, we've had cases of heroic times when canal pilots have stood up to the challenge. And this is back in the beginning. We didn't know what this thing did. And you have a cruise ship filled with potentially viral masses and massive viral spread. And those 2 cruise ships were manned by Panama Canal pilots that donned the protective gear and volunteered to go on and bring those people through. A
I believe
lot of ports.
you're referencing like protective gear, like full hazmat suits, right?
Right. Yeah. That's back when we didn't know the extent of, and we still, I don't know what the extent of viral transmission is. Now they're saying that there's more variants that are much easier to contract. But long story short, those were trying times where the canal has and its personnel have stepped up to the challenge, and a lot of these ports were not allowing the ship to even come ashore.
Yeah.
And here you essentially had people trapped on board. And in an effort to, as a humanitarian gesture, the pilots got on board with no relief, no just one-man job on these ships, and took them in an expedited transit from Pacific to Atlantic so they could get to their final destination somewhere off of Florida.
I think that was the Zandam, wasn't it? The Holland America
Zandam. I can't remember. I think there were two of them. I can't remember the name of the ship.
Yeah, but I think they were trying to get the Fort Lauderdale, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, if it hadn't been for the Panama Canal pilots stepping up I mean, what did we know about COVID when it kicked off, right? Nothing, and in March, April, May, those were really trying times. And to really take that step and decide to put your health on the line to help these people get, to safety,
right.
Especially cruise ships at the beginning. I mean, yeah.
And speaking of cruise ships, now it's I have a buddy of mine that if you're tuned in there, Captain Hansen, I salute you. He's over there in the Bahamas and skeleton crew of about 23 on a big cruise ship, and where they're going to go, when they're going to start operations is who knows? And it's quite an impact on the cruise industry, and it's quite devastating. They've laid out a bunch of cruise ships, passenger ships, and I'm just hoping for a quick recovery in that industry soon. And it's a vital industry that provides a lot of secondary businesses, ship chandlers and food providers and travel agencies, and it just all trickles down, and it's devastating that a lot of these ships are just light up. We even have some in the bay over here. I think, or I saw one on the Atlantic side the other day, just sitting empty. And it's not cheap to keep those things even empty. It's quite an undertaking, even with a reduced crew of 23 people. It's still a challenge.
Sure. I imagine those things, you got to keep them moving, or else they have a soul, and if you don't keep them moving, then the mechanism can wither and die. We do have some answers to your questions, Captain Andy.
All right.
Let's see. Allison Patrick has an answer for both the heading and what a knuckle duster is.
Come on, Allison. You got this, Allison. You got this.
He says 000 is the heading.
All right.
She also says that a knuckle duster is an assisting pilot. Now, I have a question for you, Allison. Do we have to thank Rudy for those answers? I know where you're getting these answers from.
Yeah.
Come on, Allison.
They're correct answers. Huh?
Those are correct answers. What are you guys going to do? I'm going to give you the hats, and you distribute them as you like. And, of course, each one of you will be donned with your own personal hat as well. So I got hats for each one of you and your three guests that you determined.
Wow, thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to you guys, and that let all our listeners know, these two gentlemen have stepped up in the entertainment industry of Panama, and that we need to support them. I'm hoping to have a fundraiser for the Theater Guild. I love that theater, like you can't imagine. The nostalgia behind it, and going in there is like going back in time a little bit to my childhood, especially at Christmas time, and remember the simpler times of just pure, simplistic entertainment, you know, in the purest form, and bringing back some simpler times, and you guys bringing on this history and this entertainment. You know, I can't thank you enough, because it's music to the soul, you know, in its own way. So I'm very appreciative of it, and you can always count on me for support.
I can't thank you enough, Captain. It's been an honor to have you on here, because, you know,
Really,
the whole country of Panama, plus all the Zonians and the people who have gone back to the States, you know, the canal has always been a part of our upbringing. But being able to have you on and answer all these interesting questions, things that we never would have found out otherwise. So we can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing that with us, because it's fascinating. The more I learn, the more questions I have.
I mean, if you ask me, growing up, speaking to just my parents and everything, what are the most, like, if you could have a profession in Panama, if you could do a job in Panama that was special, it was being a Panama Canal pilot. That is like epic, you know? So just to be able to talk to you and hear your experiences, hear your stories, it's incredible, because I think, you know, you represent Panama so much to the fullest with what you do. So it's really special.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
So-
And I'd like to take this another step. You know, the history, the beauty of the canal, it's a living, breathing waterway. And it needs to be commemorated in song and dance, or in a Broadway musical, or a spy novel or something. I think we talked about this, HB, but there's so many stories in the canal. There's some true, some not so true, but regardless, it is something that can evoke, you know, really a lot of passion and art. And it's a great backdrop for a movie, for a spy thriller, espionage, sabotage, or just the story of hardworking people opening their doors to world commerce. Whatever. It's something that what I do and that you all do, we could bring together in something beautiful to celebrate it. I think someday in the future, or who knows when. It hasn't been done in years. There's been a couple movies that you've seen back in the 40s and 50s that are really cool to see. Jackie Chan, and he was in one, and Orson Welles had a mystery radio show about the Panama Canal and espionage and sabotage during the war. But there's a lot of potential there to bring the arts and the waterway together.
There's another thing popped into my head. Just being in a chat group with some of you pilots. Can you tell us a little bit about, because you're always sharing interesting plates of food, like if you're on an Indian ship or a Filipino ship, or like you get cuisine from around the world. Can you touch a little bit on that and tell us maybe your favorite dish that you've been able to try?
Well, you learn quite a lot from the cuisine. That's a little side benefit of the job. You know that on an Indian ship, if it's Sunday, they're going to be serving biryani. It's Sunday biryani on an Indian ship. I love biryani. I love Indian food, and that's and they have, especially the ones that make naan. If you're all familiar with, I know you all are into cooking and such. I make my own naan here, actually, and I love naan. So that's that bread. You have, for those of us that are also on Sunday on German ships, they have Eintopf. I don't know, HB, you've had Eintopf before?
Is that the potato pancakes? I don't know.
Yeah, Eintopf is one pot, and it's a German army meal that, how do you say one in German? Is ein, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it literally means one pot. And I think they take the leftovers from all the week, and then on Sunday they just put it on their sausage, potato, celery, you know.
Watch it.
Yeah, and it's quite tasty. And so all these different ships, you know, on Korean ships, you're sure to have kimchi for breakfast, which I don't mind at all. I like kimchi. I've had some of the best cold water tuna. I think it was Big Eye or Blue on a small Japanese refrigerated carrier, and he brought me out a stainless steel bowl filled with and he just a little bit of soy sauce, and it was like butter in your mouth. It was unbelievable tuna, and he insisted I take one home. I had a bag with like a 40-pound tuna coming home.
Wow.
No. Oh yeah, please take it. You know, and that was a unique gesture.
You couldn't say no.
You can't say no to the Japanese master. So I came home. That tuna it's the cold water. I think it was the Big Eye, and they, you know, they have that belly piece that sells for an arm and a leg that they auction at times. So I've had Japanese cuisine. I've had on the cruise ships. They bring up all kinds of food up onto the bridge, and so that can be quite filling. Some nice. One of the best breakfasts is if you get on a U.S. flagship. They have great breakfast. If you like the bacon and the pancakes and the sausage and your standard American breakfast. I've had some quite interesting cargo ships that are traditional. Not very much of those are left, where they come with the mess boy, and he's serving you on a Chilean, of all places, a Chilean ship. They serving it with the traditional, with the napkins and everything, because now everything's just kind of like cafeteria style, and they bring it up to the bridge or something. I enjoy Russian cuisine. My favorite is greshka, which is buckwheat. I love that buckwheat. I loved it so much I ordered it from the internet, and so the Russian have improved their culinary skills. So you got Russian, and let's see who else. So those are the ones that, and of course Greek. The Greek captains are quite hospitable, and they bring up some nice traditional dishes if the cook is Greek. Especially on an all-Greek cruise ship, is very nice. And some of the French ships have they cook their own fresh bread, and so you get quite a variety of food, and it's quite interesting, the different meals that come out, and definitely are you going to get some interesting things.
You ever had some questionable meals that maybe didn't go down so well? Did our internet dip out there? You still there, Andy?
Andy, come back.
I've got video. I just don't have audio.
We've got a minute left, HB.
All right. Well, maybe that's the internet telling us something. It looks like we've got a little internet outage here. We've lost Captain Andy's audio. So you know what, Captain? We're gonna tune it. We're gonna tune it down. We're gonna sign it out. Again, we've already talked about what a great pleasure it was having you on the show. We're sure to have you back. I think we only got through half the questions.
Yeah, there's too many questions left unanswered. Too many.
We had a lot of audience participation. So once again, thank you. Joe, can you give us the sign out, the Rapping with Rapscallions? Joe, there, we lost Andy.
Oh, we lost Andy. But HB, before, just the people that won. So we have Mayra Elena 222. That's 3 2s on Instagram. She won one of the hats. And on Facebook, we have
It was Allison Oler Patrick.
Allison. Okay, so we'll be getting in touch with you during the week to see how we could do to give you those hats that you so awesomely won.
Oh,
Once we get them,
Andy's
there
back.
he is. Back.
There we go. Okay, so we were just talking about the winners. What was the Instagram winner again, Joe?
The Instagram winner was Mayra Elena 222.
And the Facebook winner was Allison Patrick. We'll be in touch with you guys during the week to try and coordinate how we can send those out. And now, thanks again, Captain Andy. We got through half the questions. We had a lot of participation. So much fun. We'll be sure to have you on the phone on the show again. We're gonna remember to tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. We're always having fun. We're always sharing a little bit of history. Do you have any last words for us, Captain?
I just want to say thank you. I salute you guys. I stand by you and your arts and your initiative that you've done here to serve Panama locally. And I hope that this year brings you the greatest success. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, Joe, take us away with words of inspiration.
Words of inspiration, guys. We're still in it. We're still in the pandemic, but as long as we stick together, as long as we work with each other to achieve the goals that we want to achieve, we can get through this. The vaccine is just around the corner, but that doesn't mean we can let our guard down. That means we got to stay strong, stay together, stay committed, and look out for each other. Aquilino says, bring him back. We will, Aquilino. You have a fan in Aquilino. I think he just wants a hat, though. So,
all right, guys. Every Sunday, 3 p.m., we're working on the podcast. If you want to hear podcast form, let us know in the comments. And the song you're hearing is me and Joe rapping. Thanks again, Captain. Sundays, 3 p.m. Goodbye, folks.
J-O-E in the place to be. HB on the track, it's like ecstasy. Rolling a well of 7 years, what we drink and be. Trying to sling the dopest rhymes in the galaxy. Let me take a minute though and relax your mind. Sometimes these words can be hard to find. 24/7 on that daily grind. Hearing voices in my head, man, they not that kind. Cause bitches be bitching, snitches keep snitching. The world keeps turning, and I keep hitching a ride. Instead of living my life. Yo, 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 yo.
Man, when you feel hungry, don't you have to eat?
Yo, yo, pump up the volume and digest this beat.
Rap Scallions in the house with this lyrical treat.
When we're done with you, you're gonna ice your feet.
If the world ends tomorrow and you had one chance,
Hey, yo, would you start the move like it's your last dance?
yo, do something small in the past and present changes.
Do something now, the future rearranges.
Cause bitches keep bitching.
Yo, snitches keep snitching.
The world keeps turning.
And you start living your life instead of hitching a ride.